This is my absolute final review on the MotOz Tractionator Adventure rear tire. So far, this is my third MotOz Tractionator Adventure rear tire. I choose that for the rear for a bunch of different reasons we'll get into shortly. The front, I've been using a TKC 80, that is the stock tire for the KTM 1090 Adventure R. I want to do this as kind of like a wrap-up video. I had some issues with the first one especially. I wanted to go over what went on with the second one and my choices to replace this with a third one. So as stated, this is a MotOz Tractionator Adventure. It's in 150/70 R18. That's the stock size for a KTM 1090R. It is a directional tire, and I think it's listed as a 40 street, 60 dirt, or 30/70, something like that. This one I did not have the issues where it was splitting right at this large lug. It was splitting right down the sides. You can see that there's some buttressing, or whatever you want to call it, between lugs, and it's really held up pretty well. This tire's got 5,000 miles on it, and the issue that I had was in the last 500 miles riding off-road, and I ride in quite a bit of sandy conditions, it was starting to slide out either way. I probably could have gotten a little bit farther with this. I would not recommend going down to what that looks like as a wear bar. My biggest concern, I probably would have ridden it for a little bit longer, but I did have a puncture in it. That's a plug. This video is not about plugs. I don't want to get into that discussion, but it was starting to burrow out the plug a little bit. So I decided to replace the tire at 5,000 miles, almost exactly. So one of the things I wanted to address first is the wear. Like I said, 5,000 miles, and I don't care what kind of cavern carver you are, you don't spend most of your time on the outer 15-20% of your tire. It is going to flat spot if you're riding it like a normal human being, and it's not a track bike, but it does have pretty good wear throughout. But the center lugs is where most of your wear is going to be, and this is, like I said, after 5,000 miles we are at 10 millimeters. So the new tire, and this has only got about 20 miles on it, just enough to make sure the bead's set. We're probably around 16 millimeters, somewhere around there. So it's about a 5 millimeter difference between where it was and where I started having issues with traction. Like I said, I could probably continue on a little while longer, but I would not recommend going all the way down to the wear bar. So let's talk about serviceability. 5,000 miles is about what I use for services. This bike has a 9,500 mile service limit. I do mine every 4,500, so basically every time I service it, I'll probably need to throw a new rear tire on. One of the concerns I have, especially, I don't know why, but and it's just a coincidence, but the two tires that I've had on here have been flat tire magnets, and if I can show you the plug, there it is. This plug. So if you have a condition where you've got a flat and you have an issue with your tire losing its bead, you're going to have a tough time getting that bead back on there. And also you're going to have a struggle, I don't care who you are, Even in your shop, you're going to have a struggle getting these on. And if you're in the field, you're going to have trouble getting that bead back. This has been in the sun for probably all day, probably about 7 hours so far, and it's been 105, 106 for the last 2 or 3 hours. And you can barely flex the sidewall. So what I've done to remedy that, when I'm out on a trip, I'll take a couple of ratchet straps, wrap them around. If I have a flat, I can push those sidewalls out and get the bead to set, hopefully. And the first one I had that issue where it came off the bead. I actually had to get recovered, but getting it home, even at home, I went to a couple of bike shops, they couldn't get it. And what I ended up doing was exactly that, putting a strap around the outside and hitting it with a good chunk of air. And that's got the bead to set. I got about another 1,000 more miles on it, but the splits were causing an issue. So I changed to this tire, and I had no issues with that afterwards. This tire's been great. It was just as this lug right here started to wear out, I got concerned about that plug, so we went to the new one. So for adventure motorcycle riding and true adventure motorcycle riding in that fashion, where you're riding pavement and dirt and trail, I think this is a great compromise. And a lot of times with what they call dual sport compromises or adventure compromises, it doesn't do anything well. It just does both. And this does both well. So it does pavement and it does off-road well. I would say it's like if you're going to go with these silly percentages, it's an 80-80 tire. It works really well on road, works really well on trips for touring, works well on gravel roads, and it works well on trail, rocky trail, sandy trail, dusty trail, whatever you're into. It makes a really good sense for this tire. It's about $230, I think, $240 I paid for this one. And it really is probably your best option out there. So if you're just stopping by this channel and you want a little background on where my opinion's coming from, and again, it's my opinion, as humble as it may be, I've been riding motorcycles for about 45 years. I've been riding large adventure bikes for about 13 years. And I've been riding off-road in the desert for more than 20. So I hope that gives a little bit of weight to my opinion. And most of my time and what this bike is configured for, the intent is off-road, but I may have to ride pavement to get to the off-road. So I'm not trailering my bike. I'm not putting it in the bed of my truck. This is truly adventure motorcycling, where you're getting on your driveway. You may ride a state or two, or within the state, a couple hundred miles to get to the trail that you want, and then ride the trail that you're on. So it's truly meant as an adventure vehicle, and the use for the tire is motorcycle adventure riding. Well, like I said, this is the last video I'm going to do on this tire. I highly recommend it, especially if you're in the Southwest. It really works well in the desert and in the high elevation pine forests. I appreciate you watching. Please comment, subscribe, ding that bell so you get notified when I put up new videos. Like and share. Adios.